Hello, Sue Harper here. I know it's been forever and forever. No excuses, just haven't had the time or the energy to do any videos. But I thought at this point in this painting, it might be a good idea to tackle something that everybody wants to stay away from, and that's complicated material, folded fabric, lace, tablecloths. This is a lace tablecloth on a lawn. And about the only thing that I want to really emphasize in this is that when you're doing the painting, it's like anything else. It's just made up of different shapes and small sections. You don't have to paint the whole tablecloth in one fell swoop. It's just little pieces of tablecloth. So what you want to do with something like this in an eyelet tablecloth is make sure your drawing is really detailed, because all those little holes in the tablecloth need to be mapped out. You're not going to be able to figure it out once it's all on the board. So do that. And another thing is to, as in any other material, which I did over here, was do your shadows, do all your shaping and all your molding of the folds and highlights first, then put in your pattern. It's just plain sense. Otherwise, you would be putting water all over your pattern and washing it out. So shading first, pattern last. Here in this, we have several different things I want you to notice. Like anything else, it's observation, observation, observation. There's several shadows in here, and as you can see, I don't think you can see too much here. I've just mapped it in. These shadows are a different color than these shadows, than a different color than these shadows. Not all shadows are the same color. This one starts out in this color and warms up as it comes over by the little rabbit. The sunlight, the overhead trees and sky, their clothing, particularly this yellow sweater has made some yellow reflections on these shadows. Now, with this particular painting, I want to do everything in the center pretty detailed and then kind of phase out. So this part on this edge probably isn't going to get a whole lot more attention, a little bit, because I just want it to fade away. This part is going to be a lot more detailed, as this, again, will just kind of fade away. Same thing with the grass in the background, but today we're just going to be concentrating on this stuff. Okay, now I've mapped in where my shade and my light is, so now I can play with color where I want to, and I'm just going to re-emphasize those. Whoops, excuse me, earthquake here. I set you flying. I have to get you straight. All right. I'm going to take, this has become one of my favorite brushes. It's just a little pony hair. I don't know what it is. What hair? It's just a little Chinese calligraphy brush. And what I did was I cut off the end of it because I prefer it to be a little bit shorter and more manageable. Some of those things are really long. So what I'm going to do is just wet one section at a time. Now I notice on this section, some of this yellow moved into here. I don't know if that's going to be a problem because I think the shadow is a little bit yellow there anyway. So I'm going to put some clear water right here. Being careful not to go over her sweater because I don't want a double line. You get watercolor on top of watercolor at the edge, and you get this funny little hard line that you have to go back and soften. I want to get it fairly wet. I've noticed that once you start putting paint on the surface, it becomes difficult to keep the paper wet. It's like the paint helps absorb that water so fast that it just disappears. So I'm kind of putting a lot on here. Since I was last here talking to you, I've moved across the country. I moved from California, the north coast of California, to Iowa. And why did I do that? I did it to be closer to kids. We are so glad we made the move. We're very happy here, with the exception that 2 of our children are still in California. But, you know, with you get kids that are spread all over the world, or all over the country anyway, you just kind of take turns. So we're here in Iowa, where 2 children live here in the Midwest, and their children and their grandchildren. So family's growing. All right, now this part of this lace is slightly creamy because it reflects the yellow. Now I don't want it to be yellow, I want it to be cream. So I'm going to use a little bit of, let me see, see if I can get you to see this. I've got my little wet spot here. I'm going to take a little bit of Sennelier Yellow Deep. Now that is yellow. I don't want it to be yellow. I'm going to take some of this pink and put that in there. That makes it a little creamier. I'm going to take a tiny bit of this blue. Now that's all the color I really want. I'm going to keep it pinkier, I think. Okay. Now that's really watery, and I'm putting it in water, so it's going to be really, really light. And we're just going to drop that where we see the darker color, which is right here. And actually, that whole section is a little bit yellow, except for this under here. I'm not going to put the yellow down below where I'm going to put the shadow color, because the shadow color is kind of a blue violet, and I don't want it mixing with the yellow and making it brown. I just want that tiny bit of yellow. Now, it may or may not look too yellow to you in this photo. I have no idea what it looks like in the video. I'm not a photographer for sure. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So it's whatever my phone records while I'm talking to you. This is what happens. I'm leaving that edge, which is higher and lighter, fairly clear. And this yellow is going to dry a lot lighter than what it is. So I'm not worried about it being too dark. That section is done, and it's separated from this section by this area that I haven't put any paint into yet. So I'm going to look at this section, and this section also has a little bit of a warmer hue to it, but it's got a tiny bit more in the green, I believe, and so I'm going to wet that whole section. I'm going to make some paint here. I've got blue on my palette, or just whatever I'm using on my, what I ever had on my last session is what's still here. So I've got kind of a gray, and I want to warm it up a little bit. I'll use some of that. Warm that up. And then I think I might add a tiny bit of the yellow. Whoops, that was too much of the tiny bit of yellow. That's all right. I'll water it down. Add a little more blue. That's what I want. Kind of a drab olive green, and I don't want that there. Let's make a space. Got to make a space between these two, or they just mind meld on me. Okay, so there we go. That's the color I'm going to use. And I'm going to wet here. Now this is basically just a background color for this section. Put that color in where I see it. It's not dark, and it will lighten up tremendously. There. Soften anything that looks like it might get hard. There. There. Now, is there anything else that's that color? Not really. A little bit over here. I'm going to put a little bit of that over in this section. Over here. Just drop in a little bit of that. That's all. When you're doing these, all this white, I mean, she's wearing white, she's wearing white, this is white, the rabbit's white, the tablecloth's white. You have to make sure that you use plenty of color, because otherwise this is going to be boring. So you can see that the white really isn't white. It reads as white, but this is lavender, and that blue lavender. This has got more pink in it. This is grayer with pink in it. This white is a darker gray color rather than the blue and purple in this one. So you just change it up as you go. I'll put a little bit more of that green in here. See, it's drying already, quite light. Okay, what other colors have we got in here? This one here is really quite a brighter green. And I'm going to wet that. Take some of my blue, add it to what I had there. And then I'm going to add some just plain blue in there. And there's a little shadow right there. more blue to that. A little bit more blue. This is also going to look darker because there's quite a bit of dark. The holes in the lace are showing through quite dark, almost black. They're not black, they're green, but because they're showing the grass underneath. There. Soften that edge. There. And then this over here again is, there's kind of like two sections of this. And I'm going to do a kind of a gray, blue in there. Soften that. Get rid of that. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. And then this down here is really purpley, and this over here is a little bit more green. So here we go. I'm going to mix up a little bit of green. Green. And a little purple. All right. Wet this. That part I'm going to have to do later because it's still wet over here. So we'll put the purple over here. And the green over here. And I'll just phase that out. And it kind of goes down into this. Which is even more blue. It's almost straight blue. Let's put that there. That there. And of course, This is your painting or my painting, and I can add colors as I see them. This area here, as I see them or I don't see them, I can put them in and they're not there, which I probably will do when I've got all the ones that I can actually see in, and I'll start adding the ones I can't see. This is very lavender, pinky. Up here is quite green. Oh, we'll do a little bit of greenish in there. All right. So we got kind of a rainbow of colors here. It's going to read white. This over here needs to be much darker. Right there. There. And there. Okay. And these will be more of the same. Okay, now I'll continue on with this and then get back to you.